Christian genocide. President Trump talks to News Nightly about his commitment to helping Christians in Iraq. Putting off the wall, the president said he's willing to postpone border wall funding to avoid a government shutdown. A greeting for Egypt.
Ha bisogno di pace, di amore, di misericordia.
Ahead of his trip later this week, the Holy Father has a message for Egyptians and the world. And remembering the Holocaust, a woman shares her dramatic story of survival and hope more than 70 years later. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, April 25th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. President Donald Trump says the United States will come to the aid of Christians who are being persecuted in the Middle East. His comments came during a reception last night at the White House for a select group of media, and our executive producer, Susie Pinto, was there. She joins us from the White House. Good evening, Susie.
Good evening, Lauren. What started out as an off-the-record reception with President Trump turned into an intense on-the-record briefing. President Trump touted what he says is a long list of accomplishments in his first 100 days, citing Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch and his many executive orders. But what caught our attention was his answer to my question about Christians in the Middle East. I explained to him that EWTN viewers have been energized by him since he is paying attention to issues that are important to Christians and people of faith.
One of those issues, I told him, is the persecution of Christians in the Middle East. I explained to the president that we just came back from northern Iraq. Christians there are on the verge of extinction, and the few Christians that are left are struggling to rebuild after ISIS destroyed their towns. My question to the president was this: will the U.S. give aid to Christians in Iraq? President Trump was quick with his answer. He said he is a Christian. The president went on to say that what's happening to Christians in countries like Iraq and Syria is terrible. He says nobody has been treated worse in the Middle East. The president added he's going to be helping Christians big league. That, of course, one of his signature expressions. The president sounded engaged and committed to Christians in the region who are at a crossroads. The Archdiocese of Erbil says there used to be over 1 million Christians in Iraq. That number is now estimated to be between 100 and 200,000. Archbishop Warda of Erbil, who's caring for 10,000 refugee families, says Christians need more than humanitarian assistance. They need Western governments to push Middle Eastern countries to protect religious minorities.
We need also the voice of the church and the Christians to put political pressure on the concerned governments, so they could really always remember when they have any discussion with any of these Arab countries in the Middle East, that to tell them what you are doing for the Christians, for the minorities. It's important.
Lauren, so Archbishop Warda asking Americans to pray, but also he's asking us to come up with concrete solutions to help his people.
And Susie, when you and I were there, we heard over and over again that we need the money. They said we need money to rebuild. We saw the towns of Batnaya flattened. 90% of it is flattened. Do you think, based on your conversation last night with President Trump, that he and the administration will follow through with aid money?
Well, Lauren, it remains to be seen what that aid, if the president will follow through with aid and what form that comes in, whether that will be a package of actual concrete money through Congress, or it will be humanitarian help and shelter. But we're going to keep on asking this administration this question. We're going to keep pushing the issue because Christians are the single widely most persecuted group in the world, according to scholars and activists.
All right, Susie Pinto. Excellent work getting the president to talk with you last night. Thank you. President Trump also signaled in last night's meeting that funding his border wall could wait. That's a relief to lawmakers fighting the clock, trying to avoid a federal government shutdown. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi is on Capitol Hill and reports. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. After taking a 2-week Easter break, Congress must now sprint to pass a $1 trillion spending bill before federal funding runs out this weekend. The border wall was a major sticking point. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says President Trump's revelation last night is promising. Democrats and Republicans will need to work together for the must-pass spending bill to succeed.
It would remove the prospect of a needless fight over a poison pill proposal that members of both parties don't support.
But President Trump still tweeted today, "Don't let the fake media tell you that I have changed my position on the wall. It will get built and help stop drugs, human trafficking, etc." White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer says funding of the border wall will happen in due time, but that won't stand in the way of government business.
We've made our priorities very clear as we continue to negotiate, and I think nothing has changed on the president's priorities.
Lawmakers are still wrangling over other issues. They want more money for coal miners whose health benefits expire at the end of the month.
Yeah, I worked there 40 years. We're supposed to have it till we die, and she'll get it till she dies. But now they say to hell with you.
One group likely to keep its federal funds is Planned Parenthood, but pro-life Republicans say there are other ways to tackle that.
So we've gone from Congresses that, particularly in the Senate, didn't have any life votes, to a Senate that today has often put themselves on record on the life issue.
Another hot topic here at the Capitol, Republicans negotiating on a plan to replace Obamacare and defund Planned Parenthood. Lauren?
Jason, when will this final spending bill deal be released?
I'm told it could be released as soon as tonight, possibly tomorrow. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says in the coming days.
All right, Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Jason. Joining us now is Steve Bell, Senior Advisor for the Bipartisan Policy Center and a former staff director of the Senate Budget Committee.
Right.
Welcome.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
Well, you know, you have been involved in budgets since the Nixon administration.
Ooh.
I know, sorry. And I want to know, how bad is it now? I read that Congress only passed all 12 regular appropriation bills in 4 years. 77, 89, 95, and 97. And we are now going to go with another continuing resolution.
Yep. Let's be honest about it. Congress just doesn't seem to be able to get its basic job done. People who want to blame President Trump for this kind of gridlock are wrong. First of all, this is an Obama budget for FY17. And second of all, it's Congress that has to pass appropriation bills.
Led by Speaker Paul Ryan.
By Mr. Ryan, and under the Constitution, you can't spend the money unless it's appropriated. So you really have to be honest about it and say, the president's come in and tried to patch what was left on the table for him.
Right, and I think that next year, 2018, when it is his, is going to be just as difficult, isn't it?
Oh, I think so, at least. If you take a look at the defense increases the president wanted, he's only going to get a bit of that this time. Defense has been sorely neglected over the last 10 years, really badly neglected. I think if you look at some of the domestic programs that he wants to really get rid of, I think there's some things there that really would be imprudent to do. What has happened is both parties, all the members, have refused to look at what we call the entitlements, the soaring cost of health care, Medicare, pensions, Social Security.
But Trump has also said he's not touching those.
No.
I mean, that's the third rail in politics.
That is the third rail, as Jim Baker said. But the truth is, in the second, if there is, and I think there will be, a second Trump administration, that has to be done, or else we're going to see another series of trillion-dollar deficits.
And which seems outlandish and outrageous to just little old us with our tiny little bank accounts. Let's talk about defunding Planned Parenthood. For this budget, the 2017 budget, could that issue preclude a budget deal?
It depends on how hard people want to push it. There's $553 million in what's called the Labor and Human Services individual appropriation bill. That means it's already in there. So to get it out, you'd have to strike it with an amendment. I don't know whether or not in the House through the Rules Committee or in the Senate with a vote on the floor on a removal, it could pass.
Okay.
So my suspicion is that 553, which includes Medicaid
and includes funding Planned Parenthood,
right,
will pass.
I suspect it will. Next year is another shot, though.
2018, and that's Trump's budget.
Right.
All right, Steve Bell, thank you so much, Senior Advisor for the Bipartisan Policy Center.
Thanks for having me.
After nearly 12 years without executing an inmate, Arkansas now has executed 3 in just a few days, including 2 last night. Marcel Williams and Jack Jones were put to death in the country's first double execution since 2000. Arkansas also put an inmate to death last week. Another is scheduled for Thursday. The state's supply of a drug used to sedate death row inmates is set to expire at the end of the month, so the governor is trying to carry out as many executions as possible. 8 were originally planned for this month, 4 were blocked by courts. The U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops has asked Arkansas to commute the sentences of death row inmates to life in prison. The President of China urges the U.S. to use restraint with North Korea. He spoke to President Trump after Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, warned of a military strike if North Korea attacks a U.S. military base or tests an intercontinental ballistic missile. Today is the founding of North Korea's armed forces, often marked by displays of its military capabilities. President Trump has sought China's help in putting pressure on North Korea.
The leader in North Korea has made no effort to have dialogue with any other country in the region.
Victor Cha, an expert on North Korea at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, testified today before the Senate Armed Services Committee. He called the country a dark strategic cloud over Asia. Tomorrow, the Trump administration has invited all 100 senators to the White House to get an update on North Korea. Egypt is heightening security ahead of the Holy Father's trip to that country. It comes just 2 weeks after suicide attacks on Christian churches killed dozens of people. Police are conducting door-to-door checks and have instructed business owners to close their shops for the papal visit Friday and Saturday. And before the trip, Pope Francis is sending a video message to the people of Egypt.
Caro popolo d'Egitto, al-salamu alaikum.
The Holy Father began the video with the traditional Arabic greeting, "Peace be with you." He goes on to say the world needs peace, love, and mercy. The Pope added, "I am truly happy to be coming as a friend, as a messenger of peace, and a pilgrim to the country that over 2,000 years ago gave refugee and hospitality to the Holy Family as they fled the threats of King Herod." The Pope will fly to Cairo on Friday for a 2-day visit. As Italy celebrates Liberation Day, Pope Francis offers Mass this morning for the intentions of his brothers in faith. Coptic Patriarch Pope Tawadros II will meet in Egypt this week. The Pope prayed the Lord might bless the 2 churches with the Holy Spirit. In his homily, the Pope spoke about the need for Christians to proclaim the good news. Coming up, a new cabinet member for President Trump. And Ivanka Trump makes her first overseas trip as the president's advisor. President Trump's agriculture secretary is sworn in nearly 100 days into the Trump administration. Former Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue is getting right to work as the president signs an executive order on agriculture. It sets up a task force led by Perdue to identify obstructions to the growth of farming and come up with a plan to fix it. First daughter Ivanka Trump is in Germany for her first overseas trip as a White House advisor. While speaking at a women's empowerment discussion with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, she spoke about her goal for the trip.
I'm humbled to be here with so many formidable leaders to engage in dialogue, to learn, to bring the advice, to bring the knowledge back to the United States, back to both my father and the president, and hopefully that will bring about incremental positive change.
Germany is still waiting to learn who President Trump will send as his official U.S. ambassador. And as President Trump nears his 100th day in office, he still has not named a new U.S. ambassador to the Vatican. Joining us now is Matt Smith, president of Catholic Advocate. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
What's going on with that? What's the holdup on naming someone?
Well, I think as you just saw also in that piece, you have some high-level ambassadorships that also need to be made. Germany, Great Britain, other countries. Not that the Holy See is not important, but we have a lot of vacancies to be filled. And if I was there, I'm encouraging the White House to really start getting those done and getting the paperwork finished to get those nominations up to the Senate so those people can be working.
Everybody wants to know, who is it? And Callista Gingrich's name has been floated widely in the media. Is there any truth to that?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of great American Catholics that are qualified for the position. You have someone like Chris Smith, who congressman from New Jersey, I think who would be a great pick. Bill Simon from California. You have some other great candidates out there.
There's Chris Smith right there. He's absolutely a big friend of EWTN, does a lot of work on Christian persecution.
Yep, and would be a great asset to the president, to the administration, with everything that needs to happen on the international stage that happens at the Vatican. You have, outside of the United Nations, that's the one place where so many countries come together to work on things together.
So, good role model, what are the qualities? I know we have on the program Francis Rooney, who was an ambassador to the Vatican under Bush and is now a representative from Naples. And, you know, he has some qualities about him that are very strategic and very, I think, communication based. What are your thoughts on other qualities?
I think you need someone that can be a coalition builder, someone who is able to understand the perspective that other countries are bringing to the table, the interactions that they have not only with the United States but other parts of the world. When you look at the picks, you know, Francis Rooney was an ambassador to the Vatican under President Bush, as well as Marianne Glendon, as well as former Secretary Jim Nicholson. All three great, wonderful ambassadors brought different skill sets to that. But one thing you got to be able to do is also advocate on behalf of the United States.
Sure. We just have a few seconds to go, but let's say President Trump nominated an ambassador today. I would just want to understand, how long would it take, the process, in order to get that person to the Vatican?
Well, they need to go then, make sure all their paperwork is in. Then there'll be a confirmation hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, a markup, you know, when their nomination gets cleared out of the committee. I'm talking very Washington speak. I apologize to our viewers out there.
I think I'm sleeping.
Yeah, you're asleep now. And then go to the full Senate for confirmation. If you look at it, you know, Secretary Nicholson, he didn't start at the Vatican until September 13th, 2001.
So that would have been January of 2001 to September.
Until we had an ambassador to the Holy See under President Bush.
All right, well, we'll stop pushing and we'll just wait a few months, I guess. Thank you so much, Matt Smith, President of Catholic Advocate. Up next, a touching tribute on Capitol Hill. President Trump joins the Holocaust Remembrance. And a survivor shares her story.
Eventually, the good will triumph over the evil.
Today is the feast day of Mark the Evangelist, the author of the Gospel according to Mark. He was sent by St. Peter into Egypt and helped bring the church into Alexandria. He was born a Jew, but was converted by the apostles after Christ's resurrection. Malaria was eliminated in the United States in the 1950s, but it is making a return as travelers come to the U.S. after being infected overseas, and Catholic Relief Services is working to wipe out malaria at its source in countries with high rates of infection. Joining us now is Tom Price, Senior Manager and Deputy for Strategic Communications at Catholic Relief Services. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Catholic Relief Services has been working in 14 different countries to eradicate this disease, and most of them have poor and are few resources. Why is CRS doing this?
Because malaria is a huge killer. It kills one child every 2 minutes. As Catholics, as people of conscience, it's something we have to simply address.
That is stunning to me, that statistic. How does it impact people's day-to-day lives? Who is it impacting the most? Children, adults?
Children are the most vulnerable. It's most likely to kill children, but anyone can get malaria. You know, you contract malaria, you can't go to work, you can't go to school, you can't work in your fields to grow crops. It debilitates whole villages, communities, countries.
What's the best approach to reducing it? Is medication the key?
Education, how you catch the disease. Once you get the symptoms, get treatment, okay? Prevention through bed nets and drugs, seasonal malaria chemotherapy, what we call SMCs, and also training health workers for effective diagnosis and treatment. You do all three, we're going to make a difference.
You're working with the Global Fund to target Niger. Why is there a special focus on that country? The cost to treat one child in Niger is only $5. Why aren't the resources available to treat more people and eliminate this disease?
Hopefully we will. There's a real chance we can eliminate malaria in our lifetime.
How?
Malaria is such a big problem in Niger. Half the population carry it. Okay, we're about to start a distribution to children under 5 to 1.2 million children. We expect that that's going to cut malaria by about 60% in that population.
Cut it 60%. This is a medical treatment.
Yes.
Is this a pill or a...
It's a little pill. You mix it in a drink. The kids say it tastes yucky, but it saves their lives.
Yeah, well, we know how medicine tastes. I have 3 kids myself. I don't want to take that. But here, you know, we have access. My children have access to all of this medicine. We take it so much for granted. Where is the money? Where is the outcry to get these poor children medicine?
Well, hopefully it'll come from your viewers. This really needs to be done. We're Catholics, we're people of conscience. Let's end malaria within our lifetimes. So a little kid in West Africa or somewhere else, he's going to have a proper life and not die because a mosquito bit him.
Thank you so much, Tom Price, Senior Manager and Deputy for Strategic Communications at Catholic Relief Services.
Welcome.
Abortion provider Planned Parenthood ranks high in a new popularity poll. A new NBC News and Wall Street Journal poll measured the popularity of key politicians and institutions. Planned Parenthood received among the highest with a 50% positive ranking, 28% negative. That's higher than the popularity of, ready? Barack Obama, Justice Neil Gorsuch, President Trump, among others. The Heritage Foundation says Planned Parenthood conducts more than 300,000 abortions each year. President Donald Trump travels to Capitol Hill to mark National Days of Remembrance of the Holocaust. The Days of Remembrance were established by Congress to honor Holocaust victims. President Trump said he stands in awe of the unbreakable spirit of the Jewish people. The president also pledged to confront anti-Semitism and condemned those who want to forget the past.
Those who deny the Holocaust are an accomplice to this horrible evil.
President Trump also noted that this is the first day of remembrance since the death of Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel. The president described him as having, quote, the gentle spirit of an angel who lived through hell and whose courage still lights the path from darkness. He died in July at the age of 87. And finally, this evening, a Holocaust survivor uses her experience to teach others. Jason Calvi first shared her story 2 years ago.
The Nazis killed some 6 million Jews and many others.
I feel that I owe the world some kind of debt.
Margit Meisner, a native of Austria, escaped.
Ciudades chiquitas.
At 93 years old, she's giving back as a tour guide here at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum.
We survivors will not be around very much longer.
In 1940, Margit was 18 and living in Paris.
My mother had been arrested by the French and sent away, and I was all by myself in Paris, and the Germans were approaching.
Margit says it's a miracle she found her mother. Together, they fled.
We walked a beautiful, beautiful walk up the mountain on the French side and down the mountain on the Spanish side, but we lost our way and got caught by the police. And eventually they put us into a Spanish jail. We were saved miraculously by a Spanish friend. So lots of miracles made it possible for me to be sitting here.
For the past 9 years, she's been leading tours here.
If we're lucky, they will not stand by when they see injustice.
She herself has seen modern genocides, but Margit says she's encouraged by people trying to help.
That gives me confidence that eventually the good will triumph over the evil.
And so she continues to tell her story of survival 70 years later. In Washington, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
What a beautiful story. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you again tomorrow. Good night and God bless.